let's talk about Godzilla Minus One, the kaiju movie that's taking the world by storm. I've just got back from an advanced UK screening and I'm going to share my immediate thoughts on the film. There will be major spoilers ahead talking about key plot details, and just a heads up, as the film is still in cinemas, the footage in this review is made up of trailers, clips and previous Godzilla movies. Right, let's get into it. A brand new Godzilla movie by Toho is always a treat to savour for fans of the King of the Monsters. But right here is a film that even many hardcore lovers of the franchise are calling possibly the best installment ever. I think a big factor as to why I loved the film so much was its direct link to the origins of Godzilla. The first Godzilla movie from 1954 was a byproduct of the Second World War. Japan was still suffering from the damages done, including on a nuclear level as the result of the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Symbolically, Godzilla was born out of Japan's perspective of a nuclear holocaust encompassed in a giant monster, and the director of the film stated that he took the aspects of the atomic bomb and applied them to Godzilla, like nature's response to mankind's creation. What Godzilla Minus One does incredibly well is it takes us back to that era, beginning at the end of the Second World War and taking us through to the late 1940s. It not only pays homage to Godzilla's roots, but it treats Godzilla with the same amount of somberness as the original. It's the reaction of the Japanese which speaks volumes. The way they respond to Godzilla makes it feel like a real threat, like a natural disaster almost. How would the world really react on an emotional response level to such a powerful danger lurking nearby, seemingly undefeatable? And because of that, there's so much weight to Minus One. A big hit and miss factor in the Godzilla films has always been the human characters. You're not gonna show Godzilla all the time for budget reasons and pacing reasons, and that's the same with Minus One. It's over 2 hours long, but Godzilla is only used for a handful of set pieces. So whether or not you're invested in the people impacted by everything going on is a massive sink or swim factor. Thankfully, with Minus One, writer and director Takashi Yamazaki did a staggeringly good job in relation to the characters here. The most important is our protagonist Shikishima. To me, he was an embodiment of Japan's grief in a post-war world. Despite being a kamikaze pilot during the war, he fled his duty out of fear, and then in the film's opening scene, he failed to perform his duty as a gunner, which led to the deaths of all but one soldier stationed on Odo Island. He's haunted by his lack of action, feeling like he's got blood on his hands, and people back home point that out. He's stalked, constantly believing he could have done more and that death follows him. This even applies to his partner, Noriko, who get together due to circumstances, winding up with them taking care of an abandoned baby girl, Akiko. During Godzilla's attack on Ginza, Noriko is swept up in the chaos, pushing Shikishima to safety. Shikishima is plagued by survivor's guilt. He loses so many people throughout the film who are attached closely to him and people who aren't, but still his level of empathy for their families is enough to bring him down. I loved his character arc, especially coming to the ultimate game plan to write off Godzilla, where in principle he was prepared to sacrifice himself to ensure a future for Akiko. He feels like he's prevented many futures from his cowardice, and now wants to put a stop to the demons in his head for the good of who's left behind, fighting for hope. His character was incredibly crafted, with plenty of emotional battles dragging him down, ripping the hope from within him, yet still holding on to enough to try and put things right. So the fact that come the end of the film, after it appeared he died in battle, for him to wind up reuniting with a surviving Noriko and Akiko, his family together again, I shed tears here. If not done correctly, this could have felt like a cop-out ending, but because of seeing the places Shikishima went to mentally, willing to die to save his little girl, not even his biological daughter, I was overwhelmed with joy when he wound up with a perfect result. He deserved this. But it wasn't just Shikishima who I loved here. The entire cast was fantastic, particularly the main group of Shikishima, Doc, Kid, and Akitsu. Their grouping comes when Shikishima joins a minesweeping vessel, taking out mines left over from the war in order to bring money home to his family. And that led to some seriously cool territory with the 4 men on a small wooden boat fighting off against Godzilla with mines. This was pretty much Godzilla does Jaws, and I bloody loved every second of it. And Doc in particular has some brilliant characterization down the line as the man who helps to spearhead the operation in taking out Godzilla. He's a lovable mad scientist whose ideas are actually rather plausible. The entire concept of how should we go about tackling Godzilla was really rather clever and focused on scientific methods and the power of nature over any man-made power. That was an inspired direction to me. But of course, it was always going to be a challenge taking on Godzilla, especially this Godzilla. Honestly, I don't think Godzilla's ever looked better. The sheer menace of it, the raw power, the unadulterated ferocity, it's all there. Visually, it was magnificent, and there are some scenes, like the opening beach scene, which are directed in a way where you truly feel the scale of how enormous Godzilla is. Yet it was the production quality of the film which really placed this version on a pedestal, and that's tremendous considering the entire film cost less than 15 million US dollars. That's the most astounding thing about -1 to me. If you'd have told me this cost 50 million, I believe you. From the practical effects, the quality of the CGI, the costume department, the set design, transporting us all the way back to the 40s, everything felt so much bigger than what the wallet had in it. It's a feat of pure cinematic magnificence on a bang for the buck ratio. Even the sound design was brain melting. Everything from Godzilla's trademark roar to the thumping Godzilla theme song, which sounds better than ever, to Godzilla's iconic heat ray. My goodness, the first time the heat ray went off here with Godzilla's spinal plates locking in and triggering, I felt that in my skeleton. Probably one of the most badass sound effects I've heard in a blockbuster since maybe the Transformers movies. Every element of filmmaking was utilized to get the most out of this Godzilla. They put their all into how it looks, how it sounds, how it's framed, how it moves, and how it acts. Plus, despite the intelligent efforts of fighting back, Godzilla lives on to fight another day. And rightly so too. Even though I think that the MonsterVerse has generally handled Godzilla rather well, I still believe that Toho in command is the purest form of this beast, and -1 is possibly their greatest towering achievement. It's broken US box office records already, and it's only on the up from here. The fact that this is the 37th Godzilla film and it manages to feel as fresh as it does while simultaneously paying tribute to its roots was a winning combination. Great human character storylines and one of the most serious takes on Godzilla ever, -1 was a joy to watch, and I look forward to another viewing when it hits UK cinemas fully. These are just my thoughts on the film. Please let me know what you think of it when you've checked it out, and also do me a favour and check out the Horror Exchange links in the description to take you to more content. I'm Connor from Unleash the Ghouls, and I'll see you next time for another honest review. Cheers out.